Hello. Hello. Hey. How's everyone doing?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Comics panel. I'm Regine Sawyer. Unfortunately, I can't be with you today, but I'm here with you through the magic of technology. It's such a blessing. And I'm so grateful and so excited to have these wonderful, awesome, talented ladies here with us today at MECCAcon for our Women in Comics panel. So we're just going to jump right into it. So I'm going to start with an introduction starting on my left. I see Kim in the corner over there. Kim Eggleston has been a professional writer and editor since 2007. Her first step into comic book writing came in 2014 with Dead by Wednesday, a Kickstarter creator-owned space bounty hunter action book. Kim also started and moderates a Facebook community group, Women Creating Comics, for women who make comics at any level, student up to professional. Next to her is Aiesha Little. Aiesha is the co-founder of the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance, which highlights African Americans and others on the African diaspora who create under the umbrella of speculative fiction. She created the organization in order to reach out to African Americans with similar interests, as well as showcase Black creators who are working in speculative fiction genres. In October, the Midwest BSFA is organizing a reading/discussion of Octavia's Brood, science fiction stories from social justice movements. Next to her is Dr. Sheena C. Howard. Sheena is the chair of the Black Caucus and assistant professor of communications at Rider University. She is a 2014 Eisner Award winner for her first book, Black Comics, Politics of Race and Representation, and concurrently the first African-American female to win an Eisner. She is also the author of Black Queer Identity Matrix, Critical Articulations of Race, Gender, and Sexual Orientation. Dr. Howard has appeared on NPR and CCP-TV, as well as other and documented as an expert on race, representation, politics, and sexual identity negotiation. She is also a Huffington Post blog contributor. Last but not least is Nicole Burton. Nicole is an artist and the co-owner of the Toronto-based Astra Comics. She founded the company in 2013 to promote marginalized voices in comics, as well as promote as a tool. She has produced two that will contribute in the next Whole Mountain, which highlights women in the 19th strike.
Under attack.
Pardon?
Oh, there's a bit of feedback. That's all. Go on.
Okay. 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 And Eugenie Shark, about a Japanese-American marine biologist, Jeannie Clark's life. Her webcomic, Talk is Cheap, just debuted in time for the Canadian federal election. Do you guys still hear feedback, or am I good?
It's better now.
Better? Okay. Okay, great. So let's just jump into it, ladies. Tell us about yourselves and what got you into the comic book / pop culture medium. Let's start with you, Nicole.
Oh gosh, thanks. Everyone, that was a math. There's going to be a test. It's just so you know, of like the words that may not have been heard by Regine. I feel like this is the thing we'll probably hear a lot during MECCAcon, but I've loved comics since I was a kid. I saw comics as an opportunity to sort of see a diversity of characters when I often couldn't see them in TV or in movies. I started making comics when I was in high school, mostly just as a way of making fun of school and passing them around my school, and then getting into trouble for using the photocopier and the make the comics that made fun of my school. I took a hiatus from comics for a bit and actually worked as a social justice activist around a couple of different causes, and then sort of returned to my passion in my mid-20s, mostly to see how comics could be used as a tool to talk about social issues in a more accessible way, especially with young people, but with people at large. And here I am today, making comics, producing comics, talking about comics, living the dream.
Awesome, that's great.
So I wasn't always a comics fan. I was never introduced to comics as a kid, which I guess is part of the story, right? Part of the problem. But I discovered specifically the Boondocks comic strip, which has introduced me to this world. In graduate school, I did my dissertation on the Boondocks comic strip. And then following that, I wrote the book Black Comics, Politics of Race and Representation. So it introduced me very abruptly to this world. But I'm particularly interested in historical comics and their role in periods of time like the Civil Rights Movement, the Harlem Renaissance, because nobody's really doing work in that area, to be quite honest. And I'm also interested in more independent comics outside of DC and Marvel. So people always want to ask me about like Superman and, you know, Black Panther, and that I'm interested in historical aspects a little bit more. So.
I have been interested in comics since I was a kid, but only peripherally. It was never something that, you know, every Wednesday, whenever you go and get your haul, it was never, Mom, take me to, you know, the local comic shop so I can get my new issues. I think that was partially because of where I grew up. And as a kid, you're interested in the things that your peers are interested in, or you're trying to be interested in those things and not be different. So I kind of hid my interest in comics and other things pretty much until I was an adult and I can, you know, afford my own space and do whatever I want to do. So I got into more graphic novels where the story's complete. I don't have to, you know, go weekly and get, or, you know, something coming out monthly and get those issues. It's just a complete story. And I appreciate the story and I appreciate the artistry of how it's presented.
Kim?
Yeah, so I didn't read comics until a few years ago. I've been a sci-fi and fantasy fan my whole life. I've read, you know, lots of those genres, but, you know, not comics per se. And my husband started writing some indie comics a few years back, and I'm a professional editor by trade. So he asked me to edit them, and then I was like, I could write one. I want to do that. So now I'm writing comics. Sorry, I forgot to say, you know, why I'm here. As I got into comics, I realized how difficult it is for women to be supported in the industry. It's a kind of a real strange culture in regards to women sometimes. And so looking around, realizing everyone I'd ever worked with was a man, I started this Facebook group called Women Creating Comics to sort of bring some of us together and create some community there. So I'm up to like 500 some members. So yeah, don't let somebody tell you you can't find a woman in comics.
That's awesome for sharing that. So the comic book industry has been going through different phases over recent years, especially in terms of its demographic. More young women in comics. What do you think this is in the industry?
Can you repeat that, Regine?
Sure, no problem. The comic book industry has been going through different phases over recent years, especially in terms of more young women are reading and buying comics. What do you think this says about the industry?
more women are buying comics? How's that changing the industry? I think it changes the demand for what you see on the comic store shelves. Hopefully it does. I think you can see it at the big publishers. The titles that are more successfully reaching women readers are succeeding. Hopefully they will see that, you know, that's the true test for, you know, whether they're going to keep doing something is whether it makes money. So hopefully that will continue. It'd be great if the same type of thing could happen for creators of color too.
So I have a bit of a different perspective on this. I haven't really seen any valid evidence that women are just now starting to buy comics. I think they've always been buying comics. I think the internet has allowed women to buy comics without having to go into a comic book store, and we know that comic book stores have been difficult places for women to go into and feel comfortable because of the way they're treated, because they don't see other women in the stores, and because it's kind of a thing like, why are you here? So I think the internet has been a powerful place for women to, one, access more women that are creating comics and have spaces to create comics. But I think also it comes down to marketing. Comics were never marketed to girls. You know, they put comics in actual little boys' toys, and they didn't do that with little girls. But I think women have always been interested in comics. I think they've always been buying comics, I think, or at least wanted to buy comics. I think the internet just gives us more access to do that.
Now, and how has, like, we need to that type of movement affected, I guess, the literary world to what's going on in the industry in terms of the changing pace?
We're having some issues here with me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so this question is for Aiesha, and it's sort of similar to the comic book industry. When it comes to speculative fiction and the representation within it, how is that helping and cultivating the literary world?
How are comic books based in speculative fiction helping?
Well, the literary world. I was really more so talking about novels.
It's cutting out again. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. When it comes to novels of speculative fiction, as well as speculative fiction within comics, how is that affecting movements such as we need diverse books and diversifying the literary world?
I actually think that, I know personally, getting into independent comics, I think there's a lot more variety as far as speculative fiction goes. You can see it in steampunk, you can see it in just sci-fi. And I think it helps people who might not necessarily sit down and read an entire novel to get into those genres under speculative fiction. You can look at a graphic novel like Concrete Park by Eric Alexander and Tony, and I'm drawing a blank on his last name. Puryear. Yes, Tony Puryear. And kind of take that as an example of science fiction, speculative fiction, and you're reaching an audience that might not necessarily read a 500-page novel on the same kind of topic.
Well, what can the fandom do to help motivate change within the industry in terms of diversity?
What does what do?
How can the fandom help?
Oh, how
What
can
can
the
the fandom do? Yes.
Okay, fandom, I think fandom has to support the properties that are out there because they are out there. I don't really, like Sheena, I'm not big on Superman, I'm not big on Batman. I will be going to see Black Panther because it's Black Panther. But for the most part, I think that if you're interested in comics from some other perspective, you have to go outside of Marvel and DC. You have to. So there are a lot of really good indie comics, people who may not be really well known that are doing some interesting work. It's just the fandom has to find those properties and support them.
Okay. To get into a bit of the conversation, convention presenting new curriculum. How prevalent?
It's cutting out again, Regine.
We can't hear any part of the question.
I'll show the question. How prevalent is sexism in the industry?
Oh, just like any other industry.
I think that one of the troubles with comics, I think it can be seen in some ways similarly to like video gaming and other areas of pop culture where because of disproportionate representation, there is an assumption, like Sheena said, about how women and girls are not involved in the industry, and so therefore you have sort of an acceptable culture that allows toxic masculinity to really grow and thrive. I was just reading an article on Bleeding Cool this morning by DeCampi. What is her first name? Alex DeCampi, thank you. Where she's coming out and talking about the state of sexual harassment, specifically within the big two, Marvel and DC, but also in indie comics as well, as kind of being this thing that is allowed to a certain extent for no other reason than the fact that these people hold positions of privilege in the organizations, and it's just too much work to actually eject them. I think that one of the ways that that is slowly being weeded out is that there are more and more women and people of color and people from the LGBT community getting involved in comics, but also I think that there's a huge factor of social media and the fact that nobody can be in these companies without being watched and without having a record that is very easily leaked onto the internet very quickly. But yeah, I would definitely agree that it's still a problem and we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I really don't have that much to add. I mean, for me as a woman, I just feel like it's like I said, just like any other industry. I think if you want to be in this industry, just like anywhere else that you're going to want to work as a woman, you're just going to have to have confidence in yourself. There'll be a lot of people that are going to tell you you can't do something. There would be a lot of people that you probably shouldn't share your ideas with until it's complete, because there'll be a lot of people discouraging you. But I think also there'll be a lot of people supporting you as well. So I don't think it's all bad. I think when we talk about the economics of it all, pay discrepancies, I don't think the comics industry is any different than the media industry as a whole, or being an academe, being a professor, being a teacher, whatever other industry you want to compare it to. And then, of course, for women of color, it adds another layer of discrimination. So I would say for women who are interested in this field, you're gonna have thick skin. You're just gonna have to have thick skin. That's just the reality of it.
As a fan, I think it's easier to avoid avoid sexism by not going on the internet. You don't go into comic book stores. You can avoid it. You shouldn't have to. And I certainly do go into comic book stores, and I will give people attitude if they try to question my choices. I like a lot of different things. I will buy, the latest issue of the Gem and the Holograms comic right along with the entire set of Y the Last Man. I'm gonna buy a bunch of different stuff, and I don't feel like anyone should judge my choices. They're not your choices. You're selling them in your store. You actually want them to move. You should be happy that someone is buying them. But I'm also not on the creator side of that. So I'm not in a place where I would have to put up with sexism as it relates to me creating a comic, being a creator. So I think from a fan perspective, it's easier to, not much easier, a little bit easier to kind of walk away from that. But if you're trying to do that as a job, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, there are a lot of women in comics Facebook groups as well that you should be a part of, especially if you're looking for work by women. They're out there, you just gotta look for them. It's not that hard to find them if you're interested in that. And I think for the men need to support the women, period.
Fans need to support that.
Just
I just remembered something, but Kim, do you want to take a crack at that?
No, go for it.
Okay, I just remembered something that I actually think is really important for confronting sexism is sisterhood. I actually think it's really important for women who are either fans, readers, creators, writers, to find other women creators and writers or artists and link up and just give yourself that time once a week, once every couple of weeks to sit down and sort of hash some things out. I know that for me, myself, and I think anybody who has experienced some form of systemic oppression can probably relate to this, but after a certain point of dealing with like certain microaggressions, things that you hear in comic book stores, or I'm certainly not gonna stop being on the internet. You start to bury things sometimes, and sometimes it takes a certain amount of unwinding and feeling comfortable around somebody to be able to be like, you know what, actually, sorry, pardon my language, that was messed. Sorry, I just remembered they were kids, so I decided not to pardon my language. That was messed up. That did hurt my feelings. I need to unpack the situation that happened. So something that we're doing in Toronto right now is a feminist drink and draw. People don't have to make comics. They don't have to be artists.
did she drop the call?
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm really trying to hear. So the feminist drink and draw is an all ages, typically a non-alcoholic event where every week people in Toronto, specifically women, but also men who are interested in being in a space that is pro-feminist, can come and do artwork, make comics, color, knit, do whatever they want, and just be around people who understand the importance of having feminist space. And we've done 3 so far, and they've been incredibly successful, and I can't believe some of the conversations that have come out of it. The fact that I am a bit of a loner when I do my art often tends to mean that I'm spending a lot of time by myself, and I'm not having that time to hang out with some of my girlfriends, and it's been really, really valuable. So.
One of the things that we have, one of the comic book stores in my town, they do just a women's night. Mm-hmm. So you can be at the store, you have discussion with other female fans, and you don't have to be bothered with any nonsense.
I think we still have pipeline issues too. I think, women are not being socialized to go into things like graphic art or art fields. I think When I go to comic conventions, a lot of times I'll see a dad with his son, you know, bringing his son around the comic convention. I don't see that as much with parents and their daughters. So I think that there's still pipeline issues of getting girls involved early and telling them it's okay to be an artist or to like comics, and supporting them in the same way that we might support our sons that have interest in comics specifically.
Okay. Answer. What advice can you give an aspiring artist writer that you wish someone would have given you when you started?
Advice for aspiring artists and writers. I'd say be determined. I mean, that's for all comics creators, men, women, whatever. There's going to be a lot of obstacles in your way, and you can't give up. For creators of color, for women, there might be a couple extra obstacles. You can't give up if that's what you want to do. It's going to take a little more determination.
Yeah, I think being a writer and an artist, but more so being a writer, I think it's a very lonely process. You can go off in a corner and like draw something. You know, you see people sitting there by themselves all the time drawing or writing, but nobody ever got to where they were without some sort of connection. You have to talk to people, you have to know people. That is the only way that you're going to get to the next step. I don't care who you are, your talent alone is never going to get you to that next step. If you don't connect with people, if you don't network, if you don't follow up with people, and if you don't talk to people, I think that is one of the most important things, men, women, is connections and connecting with people.
Yeah, actually, just to ride on that, my main piece of advice to people is find your community. If you do speculative fiction, look for somebody or some group that's doing speculative fiction. If you're a woman and you want to get into comics, look up a Women in Comics Facebook group. And if you can't find the community that you are interested in making, make that community happen. Do a call out, organize something on Facebook, organize your friends, talk to a comic book shop, talk to a local cafe, get it going. And don't be discouraged if it's not an immediate hit right away. I know that I've had a lot of people tell me that comics are not an appropriate medium to talk about social justice issues. That's my bread and butter. But that was something where people told us that it was too niche. What's come of that is that we are slowly building that niche with at Astra Comics, and we are looking to work with people, and you would be amazed how many people are connecting to us being like, I want to make a comic about this issue, I want to make a comic about this issue, and they have been waiting for somebody to be in a role where they can offer them some advice, give them some feedback, consultation, and work with them really on an equal level. So,
and you can't be afraid to just ask people for something. Like, you would be surprised how many big name artists will actually respond to you and help you with something. When I wrote my book, Black Comics, I have a range of a bunch of different phenomenal writers, artists. John Jennings did the cover. I'd never met him. I didn't know John Jennings. I just sent him an email, never meeting him, and he did the cover. So you'll be surprised how many people that you may be a fan of, that you may be scared to talk to, that will actually work with you. To me, that was the most amazing process of writing my book. People were like, "Yeah, I'll do it." I was, a couple people never responded or didn't want to be involved. They regret it now. But for the most part, people want to work with different people. So I would say don't be scared to ask to work with your favorite artists.
I would say don't be afraid of failure. Failure is not I think we get taught that if you fail at something, then you can never recover from that. You are a horrible person. You're never going to do anything good with your life. Failure is evidence of trying. If you're trying, you are doing something right.
Kim?
Oh.
I'm watching you, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, they all make great points. I guess I would totally agree with Sheena on the networking. Comics is a very small industry. It's like indie, big three, whatever. It's all still small. And you know, if you don't reach out to people, or if you do and don't act with integrity, like people will know it's a very reputation-based industry. You gotta just reach out and make those positive connections and make things happen if that's what you want to do.
What projects are you working on now?
What? Sorry, project. Well, I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff, sequels to the stuff I've written. I'm working on a webcomic called The Eighth Day with my husband. And I'm doing some work with the Michigan Comics Collective, which I totally encourage any of you who are from Michigan to check out because they're doing some cool stuff. They're based up in Saginaw, but yeah. And oh yeah? Oh yeah, come over. They're on Facebook and I don't know, all over the web, so.
The Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance will be hosting reading and discussion of Octavia's Brood, science fiction stories from social justice movements in October with one of the anthology's contributors. We're based in Cincinnati, so a lot of our face-to-face events happen there because I'm trying to reach out to that community specifically in the greater Cincinnati area. We are also doing a steampunk character building workshop with a local kids writing center in November. And you can find us on the web at midwestbsfa.wordpress.com.
So all of my energy right now is going to a documentary that I am producing called Remixing Colorblind. And it's about how higher education shapes our perception of race. So we're talking about things like the stigma of affirmative action. We're talking about faculty diversity problem, even though we have more high school students of color than white students. By 2020, we have a faculty diversity issue. And it's also talking about campus climate for students of color and reverse racism for white students. And it's largely the voices of current college students. And we have Yaba Blay, who's actually she created CNN Black in America. Her book is why they created that series. She's in the documentary. Dr. James Peterson, who's an MSNBC correspondent. He also has a show on NPR. He's in the documentary. So it's called Remixing Colorblind, remixingcolorblind.com. The trailer should be out this month, and hopefully I'll finish the film by January.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Let's see, Astra Comics is working on a couple of things right now. The big one is that we just launched our first publishing project. It's an anthology called Drawing the Line, and it's 14 chapters of comics by women in India as they experience gender discrimination, sisterhood, sexual harassment, double standards between men and women in the workplace, within their families. And there are a lot of connections to be made, I think, to people living in North America in different communities. And I think that the book is a way of looking at how women's comics can be international in its scope and also intersectional with its politics, looking at the intersections of things like gender, but also race, shadeism, colorism, caste, class. There are a lot of different factors that make up who we are and the experiences that we have. So that book is available for pre-orders for the month of September. And the way that we are launching the book is that some of the proceeds of the book are going towards funding workshops to women and girls on how to create comics about our experiences. So we're working really closely with a group of youth in the South Asian community in Toronto. What else are we doing? I just put out my first comic called Eugenie Shark, which, as Regine mentioned, is a biography of my childhood hero, the late, great Eugenie Clark. She was a Japanese-American marine biologist who was coming up in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. She was the only woman in her field for many years. She was the only woman of color in her field for many years. And she still pioneered shark research for 5 decades. So she's an incredible person. She's a hero in my mind. And that booklet will be coming out at the end of the month.
Awesome.
That's amazing. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Audience question.
Yes. You want me to go and lead that?
Yes, please.
All right, so we're gonna take a couple of questions from the audience. So does anyone have any questions for any of us? Yes, sir.
My name is Dia Howard. My question to you guys is, sexism was brought up as a topic. We know that, it's something that's very prevalent in comics. We see a lot of, full figure women in comics, basically sexualizing themselves, like, for a very masculine audience. And do you think that it's possible for, a character like with more like, realistic proportions and have to, respect themselves and, establish themselves like a character to be respected? If that's, would if a character like that would actually have like a viable audience and actually, be popular or something that people would be interested in reading?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's happened before. There's a comic strip called Where I'm Coming From. Barbara Brandon is the creator, and she said, I'm never going to show the women's body. She only showed their heads up. Nationally syndicated comic strip artist. People loved the comic because it was good. Just because we don't do it doesn't mean it won't sell. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of just the tip of the iceberg, and I personally don't like to focus on this topic for too long, because I kind of feel like you can look anywhere and everywhere and see unrealistic representations of women's bodies all over the place. I mean, since the introduction of Photoshop, they've made it so easy to basically make every single photograph that we see in an advertisement of a woman to be something that has been modified in some way, shape, or form. But there definitely are some incredible, more realistically proportioned women characters out there, even from some of the mainstream comics. I encourage everyone to look up the Red Tornado. She was one of the first female superheroes. She was a completely normally proportioned woman. She was a single mom. She had no money, but she wanted to go out and make the world a better place. So she dressed up in this like red bum flap pajamas onesie thing, and she like put a pot on her head and wore it as a helmet, and she just went out and kicked butt. And it was like one of the coolest comics that I ever saw, and that was from like the 1940s. So to say that it isn't out there is a bit of a misunderstanding, and to say that people won't buy the comics because the woman doesn't look a certain way, I think is also a bit of a misunderstanding. I think that some people probably just don't want to stop doing something that they've done their whole careers. And that's probably why that argument keeps getting a lot of traction.
Yeah, you default to what you know works most of the time.
But the way that people draw boobs, like if you're interested in drawing big boobs, like I get it, I'm an artist, like there's something to be said about that. But for the love of God, gravity is a real thing. Like make the naturals, but like show that there's some gravity there. Like I hate seeing drawings of women where like the orb is like floating, like around her collarbone. And it's just like that doesn't make any sense. It angers me more as an artist than as a feminist, to be totally honest.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious as to where you go to when you want to encourage more young women to get into the medium of comics. Like, as a big fan, I like to push Colleen Duran, and I like to push Carlos Steve McNeil. But other than talking about the Red Tornado, are there specific things that you kind of suggest to young women or to women as a whole kind of get into comics and say, hey, here's a character, here's a creator, other than your own work as creative? Is there anything that you kind of push and say, hey, here's a place to start and check this out? Because I go to Promethea, I go to a lot of the bigger stuff.
Step back.
Something that I actually just discovered, and I don't know how I missed this for so long, was I won't say it because there's a kid in here. BITCH Planet. That's something that I'm just getting into, and so I would point them to Kelly Sue. Yes, I just listened to her on Fan Rose show the other day. So she's probably the first one that I think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, same completely. I would say Kelly Sue Comic. Obviously Gail Simone's one of the most famous, I think one of the women writing comics today. Her work isn't for everybody. I guess no one is. What's more important for a young woman in comics is to go find out what she likes to read, you know, and there is a wide variety. She'll be able to find something, you know.
We did a listing on our website that you can write down if you want last March called Our Place is in Control, 19 characters that embody women's liberation. And the way that we put it together, we had a team of people and we were all kind of like digging into the characters that we really love. And we tried to come up with a comprehensive list that was reflective of a lot of different backgrounds, sexual orientations, genders, just to sort of like look at the woman's experience from a variety of different perspectives. I think that like sometimes you can look at like mainstream women's comics, they're predominantly white, they're predominantly from like certain backgrounds in the comic.
Big boobs.
They all have great boobs, yeah. Besides the defying gravity part. I highly recommend looking up some of those lists and really going for looking for the lists that offer a variety of perspectives. It's such an important thing for like when you're a young woman to be able to see that, to see what else is possible, what's out there.
I think I saw another hand. Yes.
Do you think that big comic companies now, I understand that indie comics have been making, comics with women as roles for quite some time now, but now that you start seeing this trend now in Marvel comics and DC comics, where women are actually starting to be in the forefront, like with A-Force and the introduction of Thor as a woman, and Miss Marvel being a person of color. Do you think that this is like an upward incline for women and people of color in comics finally starting to take more of a popular approach? And even with like Peggy Carter, the TV show, like Agent Carter, where it's the lead woman, and she's more than just the love interest of Captain America. She's actually fully gay and actually using fun by herself. Do you think that this is like a positive improvement, and do you think that it will continue as more people see women as more than just like background characters and actual forerunners of the story in mainstream comics?
Well, for DC and Marvel, no, I don't think so. I think that I was saying this to you earlier. DC and Marvel are part of the big 6 companies that control 90% of the media that we consume. I think that if you look at the history of people, let's say people of color, let's say Black people, for instance, and Black artists, there's a wave. We go through a couple of years of, this is the year that Black people are going to be on TV. Then it goes back down to this year that none of you are winning any Emmys and we're not going to see you on TV. Then it goes back up. So you think about like milestone media was there, then left. You think about, the era, Blaxploitation era with films was there, then left. I think right now we're in an upward wave for people of color, which I was part of that wave when I won the Eisner Award. The only Black people there to win an Eisner Award. The first Black woman to win an Eisner Award in the history of the Eisner Awards. It was just timing. I think 5 years from now, I wrote that book, I wouldn't have won an Eisner Award because we wouldn't be on the upswing of people of color are like cool and want to make money off of them right now. That's just my personal opinion. I hope that I'm wrong, but I base my opinion based off of the history of how things have been. And I think right now it's just hot, and then it'll go back down.
Your opinion is based on extensive research. So.
I was just going to say no. I don't think that it's about money. I feel like we are at a point right now where you're still going to get backlash from these, and you already see it from starting, well, I can say most recently, with Miles Morales being Spider-Man and everyone having an opinion about why is he Spider-Man, and it's just going to keep coming at us. And then if we're not creating our own properties, you have to create your own properties for what you want to see. There will be an audience there. The audience will be there. There are people out there who are like me, who are hungry to see something outside of the big boob superhero, superwoman, whatever her title is, smashing bad guys with her gravity-defying chest. I want to see some other stuff other than superheroes. I want to read about social issues in a comic form. I want speculative fiction in a comic form. The audience is there. Will Marvel, DC, will they do it? They won't do it unless it makes money.
But the thing is, specifically for Black people, like our spending power is enormous. The movie The Perfect Guy, it's a horrible movie, but it was like #1 because every Black person went to see it. I think the sooner we realize that, we'll be able to keep these shows going and these comics going if we buy them, and if we don't buy the stuff that we want to see. And I don't think that we really realize that as a group. That goes for women too.
If I can just add on to that, I have a fear associated with diversity taking more of a priority and focus in mainstream comics, which is that I am of the opinion that business and capital in general sees anything as a commodity. And if somebody is going to look at a diversity of experiences and look at it sheerly in terms of how they can make money off of it, I worry. I really don't think that is why I'm interested in being involved in comics. I think a lot of people from diverse backgrounds, if they get a job offer from like Marvel or DC or anything that's going to give them a steady paycheck for them and their families, like all power to them. But I would personally, I would never work for a company that sees the diversity question as something where that's going to be the next big thing, And I actually think that that's where mainstream comics is going. It's been a long haul, and it's been literally people banging on the doors of Marvel and DC for the last 20 years. And it's like, yeah, now they're finally listening. Do I celebrate or do I worry? Because they're going to look at this as like a market that hasn't been tapped. Yeah.
Now I am over the moon that Marvel hired Ashley Woods because she is fan-effing-tastic. But I also will be buying. Oh, that's your phone.
Blown up.
So I love that they hired her, and I think that she's going to do fantastic work. But I also will be buying Niobe She Is Life from Stranger Comics, which is an independent comic that she worked on with Amanda Stenberg. Yes, I can't think of people's last names today. Excuse me. But yeah, I will be buying that too. So.
Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that the audience will be there for different perspectives and new ideas. Can you talk about how to find that audience and difficulty of finding that audience if you have limited access to the internet?
Yeah, the internet is kind of the answer to that question.
That is the solution to the problem.
Well, can I ask a question back? What spheres do you operate in? Like, do you go to school, or do you have like a certain workplace community?
School and I would say Detroit as a city.
Yeah.
And within that, there's various communities, various poetry and performance communities.
I think college campuses.
Yeah.
Like, for my documentary, I'm just gonna do a college campus tour across the country. Like, you don't even have to pay me. I'll just premiere it and come and show up. So I'm thinking about Aaron Magruder's comic strip. He started at the University of Maryland when he was a student. He was just writing for the student paper. And then during that time period, they wanted to make a concerted effort to get more Blacks into comic strips. And his work was already there. It was just a matter of it being good and someone knowing about it, and then it was nationally syndicated. So I think college campuses, of course your work has to be good and people have to like it, but I think putting it out there on college campuses, because they're already there, they're already open to new ideas, and the young people are the people that you want to get behind your work, to be quite honest, because those are people that are going to go and take it and push it out and do things with it and use it. So I would say college campuses would be a great place to start. And they're always open to like having people come and speak and do stuff.
Even events like this, you come to events like this, you talk to other people in the room, you talk to the artists who are in the vendor hall, you ask them, how did you get started? What are you doing to be successful? What's working for you? I've found, since starting this organization, which was only last December, my network has grown so much just by reaching out to people at events like these.
Yeah. So one more question, we have like 2 more minutes. Yeah.
I guess, with artists who publishing or something, I know like within like the indie, scene, and like indie versus like, mainstream, like there's kind of just like, yes, there's a lot of like great like stories that aren't being told that are being told now, but financially it might not be as like sustainable as like, like a easier Marvel because they're doing big money, whereas like indie comics are doing more like to make it free. Do you think it's possible like, in a time like you could actually, have like, profitable or like sustaining like, lifestyle like based off of like, making like your independent, works and things like that?
That's a tough question.
It's got to be a dialectical relationship with you and your readers. You need to know what your readers are thinking, and you need to know if they like it. And if they don't quite like it, you need to be open to that and open to the idea of like making changes, which is like, that's a very difficult relationship to have. And I can't think of a lot of people who have it, perfectly right. But I think there are ways.
There's still people trying to monetize what you do is like the big question. How do you monetize what you like to do? Like, I like going on vacation. How do I monetize that? Can I blog about it? Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah, for me, every comic I've made has been kickstarted. That's the answer to that, That doesn't mean that I get paid for it. I don't. It's still something that is, in the red for me. It's not something I make money off of. There are people here upstairs who do it for real successfully. So
I think you're gonna go in the negative before you go in the positive. You're gonna have to. You got to put money into it in order to get something out. That's just
And if your goal is only to make money,
See, I don't think that's a bad goal.
I don't know, making money is not a bad goal, no. But if that's
but
your only goal.
like realistically, you're not gonna make a ton of money ever in this, like, you know, that's a 1% thing, so.
All right, that is our time. Thank you for coming, guys.
Great panel, guys. Great panel.
Thank you, guys.
They all have your programs.
Sorry, I do appreciate you pointing out the reality.